reason why I am whispering is I live in a rooming house with other tenants, and I do not want to wake them up. So, what I wanted to tell you is that I woke up about an hour ago and I couldn't sleep. And I learned about David Letterman's retirement announcement. So I was going through old times on David Letterman, some clips, and the infamous clip of Letterman 1987 with guest Crispin Glover. And as you know, Crispin took an impromptu kick at David Letterman's head that very nearly hit. Anyways, that one thing led to another, and I was thinking, what's the, as you know, if you know my other videos, you know that I speak German, and I was thinking, what's the funniest sounding word in German? And I always thought the funniest sound in English was the oi sound, like oi or ui, ui, ui. And that made me think of, you may want to ask the children and Bible thumpers to leave the room. Okay, but the first Hispanic woman that I've ever fucked, while I was fucking her, she was going, wee, 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 and she was digging her fingernails in my back. Now, the fingernails didn't seem to bother me, but I laughed so hard at the noises she was making that I lost my heart on, and she ended up kicking me out. Sorry. I was young and as irreverent as I am now. And but yeah, so that ui, and oi sound is funny. So getting back to my original point, the funniest word, in my opinion, in German is Schleudere. Schleudere. And it literally means hurler. Now, not somebody that pukes. German is much more literal than English is, and they use idiom a lot less often. For example, like in English, we say, boy, I really hit the jackpot today. Where Germans would, if you said that to a German, in German, he would think that you literally hit the jackpot with something. I don't even know if jackpot translates into German. I don't know. Yeah, so Schleudere, from the verb schleudern, which means to hurl. And interesting, let's go into the word origin, or where I first heard the word, because I can't sleep right now, so let's get crazy. Or let's get academically boring. I first heard the word schleudern from when I was brainwashed by a cult called the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they published their own version of the Bible called the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures. And I noticed in Revelation that the German translation is called the Neue Weltübersetzung der Heiligen Schrift. And so I first saw the word schleudern in the German equivalent of Revelations, which is called Offenbarung, or Offenbarung. What is it? Offenbarung or Offenbarung? I think it's Offenbarung. Just like I used, Hanover. In German, they don't say Hannover. They say Hannover. And they don't say Lufthansa. They say Lufthansa. And they don't say SS. They say SS. But, boy, that... when I make my eyes go like this, I can... it brings everything into sharper focus so I can actually see what I'm trying to read. I've always been nearsighted. In other words, I couldn't see stuff. Stuff in a distance was blurry. But until a few years ago, I could see my baby blues. I could read up close real good, and now it's starting to go out of focus, especially in my right eye. Anyways, so while I'm in this altered state of consciousness, what else would you peoples like to know about me? Am I really Canadian? Yes. Did I really grow up in the United States? Yes. What state did I grow up in? Mostly Virginia. But I also lived in Pennsylvania Dutch country, Washington State, and or Washington for you people who prefer that pronunciazione. And curiously enough, for a Navy family, Albuquerque, New Mexico. What was a Navy family living on Sandia Base? Well, Sandia Base doesn't even exist anymore, but it was a top secret nuclear weapons place. And we were there during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, and Sandia Base probably would have been wiped out by the Russians had there been a war between the lion roars tonight. Anywho, we were, suffice to say about the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962, we were about to relocate to the desert when President Kennedy came on the horn, came on TV, and said that the crisis had been resolved. So, yeah. But I want to mention the coyotes before I sign off, which is no big deal. Everybody, in the United States, coyotes have filled the niche that had been taken by the wolf, the gray wolf, the timber wolf, until about 120 years ago, when they were practically slaughtered to extinction in the lower 48. Anyways, I camp a lot in the woods, so I can tell the difference between dogs barking and coyotes barking. Actually, the Latin scientific term for coyote, I think it means barking dog, which is interesting. Barking canine, which I think is interesting because of, it's in Latin though. Latria, I forget what the name is. Barking dog, which is interesting because don't all dogs bark, excepting for hound dogs and beagles and basset hounds. Anyways, I'm sort of running on empty here. I have to be quiet. I don't want to wake the dead. And for you people who speak English as not their first language, I don't want to wake the dead. Should be interpreted as I don't want to wake them who are sleeping. So, yeah, I may have mentioned this in previous videos. I have been profoundly moved and touched by Michelle Coase. Michelle, with one L, Coase, C-A-U-S-S-E. She is a French lady who's famous in France for her translating work and also her lesbian theory. And I forget what it is. Well, I think she came up with a theory that if lesbians cut their hair real short, they might not attract as much attention from menfolk as if they had left it long, because most men like women that have real long hair. The longer the better. But anyways, she decided to up and commit suicide. So she went to Dignitas in Zurich, Switzerland, and she made a video. Then she allowed them to make a video of her taking the Pinto Barbie doll. So I thought that was fascinating, but it was sad in a way. And I hope to Jesus H. Christ that she didn't go to hell, because you know that's the teaching of the church, that if you commit suicide, you might go to hell, because you don't have time to repent. But then, you know, she actually had about 3 minutes of consciousness after she drank the concoction, and then another 20 or 30 minutes before she actually died. So she could have repented. I don't know. Hell is a scary teaching, but you know, it's who knows? Maybe belief in hell has prevented a lot of people from committing suicide. So maybe it's not that. Some people, I believe, Father Robert Barron, who in the last several years did that wonderful series called Catholicism DVD set. And Father Barron said hell may very well be nearly empty of human souls. I don't know, but I've never really wanted to commit suicide. But certainly the fear of going to hell would preclude me from doing that, because the pain of hell is supposed to be a lot worse than we could ever experience here below, or I should say here up above. Yeah, it's sad that, I mean, Jesus talked more about hell than he did about heaven. That's what they say. I don't know if it's really true or not. But, yeah, it's, I wish my face were more symmetrical. And yes, I don't have my false teeth in. As you can see, my remaining teeth are in very good shape. And I had my teeth, I always wanted to talk out of the side of my mouth. No, I had my teeth extracted rather than paying tens of thousands of dollars to get them. I should have had my teeth yanked 10 years before I actually did. I mean, I took so much ibuprofen, which I usually refer to as ibuprofen. Ibuprofen. When you say it fast without emphasizing it. Ibuprofen. 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 It sounds the same anyway. I like to call it ibuprofen. Why am I so childish? Well, call it human, because young folks out there, you never lose the child within. It's possible to lose the child within, but if you do, you may become psychotic. Incidentally, a friend of mine, I don't believe I've mentioned my real job ever in my videos, because I don't really like, to let out too much information. Like I really hate it that my nose is not symmetrical. I'll tell you why. It's this side is bigger. The whole right side of my body is smaller than the left side. Noticeably smaller. Not much, but noticeably smaller. And with the head, it's reversed. The right side is a little bigger than the left side. Now, why is that? Well, I'm left-handed. And I'm left-footed, too, I guess you could say. When we used to play kickball or football, I always used to kick with my left. The only thing I ever did right-handed was the baseball bat. I would catch like a left-hander. No, wait a minute, no. I would catch in my right hand. But I haven't played baseball since I was a kid. Yeah, I used a left-hander glove on the right hand so I could throw them. Yeah, the only thing I ever did right-handed that I can think of is bat. I don't know why. I could never bat left, like most left-handers do. Anywho, boy oh boy, this video's getting big, but thanks to my good standing at YouTube, somebody seems to like my videos in YouTube because they keep letting me post these things. And basically, they're really for me only. Sometimes I make them public, and sometimes I keep them private. And then some of my fans send me a little YouTuber email and say, why did you, close off your videos again? But excuse me. I guess I should sign off. But somebody said, what's your real beliefs? Do you really believe in, are you an atheist or a theist? Do you believe in God? Are you Christian? Blah, blah, blah. Well, yes, I am a Christian. I'm a believing Catholic. There are some teachings, I have to say, with which I struggle, but I do not doubt that the church is in cahoots with other ecclesial communities. Believe it or not, the Catholic Church is in communion with every Christian denomination, although it's not a perfect communion. I do believe the church that Jesus founded exists in all her fullness in the Catholic Church. And people said, what, you mean the Roman Catholic Church, right? And I said, well, the Catholic Church, until 1054, included Eastern Orthodox as well. And it's interesting, that's almost 1,000 years ago. And just barely 12 years later, after the big schism or schism, in 1054, the Normans conquered England in 1066, and thus began the transformation of the English language. Or as I would say, the English tongue. Lingua means tongue in the Latin languages, by the way. Now, I mentioned my work. I work in the mental health industry. I actually call it the mental illness industry. People who are mentally healthy don't. You can't make money off of selling them pills. No, but actually, I don't agree with the pill pushing. And I've seen people on them pills that for years, and they get the shakes, and their hands are shaking. Gee, I hope I don't get sued. They can't sue me as long as I don't tell these people not to take their pills or mention the name of the medication. Isn't it sad that you're not allowed to give people advice on anything medical, or you can be sued by, at least in the United States, as far as I understand, but I'm not in the United States anyway. I'm in Canada. I have not been in the United States since, well, this is kind of funny. I went to the border one time. There's a place in Surrey and Langley, British Columbia. Now, Surrey and Langley are called cities or municipalities, but if it was in the United States, it'd be called counties. But anyways, there's actually a 0 avenue that's right on the border. Well, it's less than 10 feet from the border, put it that way. But right there, I haven't been years. But there's just a little ditch separating the United States. And the border runs through this little ditch. You got 0 Avenue on the Canadian side, and parallel to it, just not more than 10 feet away, is, I think it's called Boundary Road on the American side. But you got this little ditch that separates them in the wintertime, in the Pacific Northwest. It's a rainforest-like climate, and you might have a foot of water in there, but in the summertime it's dry. So sometimes I'll go there and I'll just walk across to the American side by about a foot and then go back to the Canadian side. It's kind of stupid, but it's illegal, so sort of gives you a little thrill that you're doing something illegal, but you're not supposed to cross the border except in an pre-approved border crossings. So yeah, I admit I have entered the United States illegally, but only by a foot. That's funny. By the way, since 9/11, you should see the border. The border before 9/11 was, you could walk right across and somebody might report you, but most of the time you'd get away with it, right? I'm not saying I did. But since 9/11, there's been high-tech stuff on the border. Not only have these huge towers made of, they look like big telephone poles, and they're made of metal. But at the top, and they're really tall, they look like 100 or 200 feet high. They've got cameras, remote control cameras, and not only that, they also have infrared so they can see at night. They have listening devices. They've got stuff like seismographs that pick up movement. I'm telling you, I don't know how many terrorists they caught. I don't think they've caught many, like less than, you can name them on one hand and still have a few fingers left. But they've caught thousands of drug smugglers and other criminals. So those boys are, they're digging tunnels now. I don't know about in Canada, but the Mexican-U.S. border. But the last time I was in the United States and actually been more than a foot inside the country was in 2003. And yeah, so it's been a long time. Well, folks, I'm starting to lose steam. I guess time to get back in the bed. But, I was talking about my work in the mental illness industry. My heart goes out to these people because I think a lot of them are sold a bill of goods by the doctors saying they're mentally ill when they really ain't. And I have to question some of these diagnoses. But the problem is these people believe their diagnoses and seem to play it out. People who I've met that are genuinely mentally ill, it's always been a very temporary thing, and usually as a result of drug use, whether legal or illegal. And that includes caffeine. I talked to a guy who insists that he said he drank 20 Cokes a day because where he worked he got free Cokes. He just had to use his own glass or cup, so he didn't realize he could, but then he was wondering why he couldn't sleep well. And of course it was the caffeine, but he wouldn't admit that. So after he said he hadn't slept for 5 days, he started acting a little bizarrely. So they talked him into, apparently his parents talked him into checking himself into a private psychiatric clinic. And but anyways, after a few days of solid sack time, bed rest and sleep, off of caffeine, he was. So I never knew before that caffeine can fuck you up if you have too much of it. That includes coffee. Apparently, coffee can kill you if you drink too much of it. I didn't know that until a few years ago. But back in the early 90s, Sanka, that instant coffee, I made the equivalent of about 20 cups of coffee in one thing by just, and man, I was flying for like 3 hours. And then I got a sort of a caffeine headache, got sort of paranoid, and I didn't get psychotic. I was just definitely a altered state of consciousness and agitation. But once in my life, I went, in the late 1980s, I went 30 days without any caffeine. And I'll tell you, the peace was just incredible. Now, for 2 days, I went cold turkey, unfortunately. I should have done it very gradually over a period of weeks. But what happened was I went cold turkey, and for 2 days I had a caffeine withdrawal, migraine headache, which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But anyways, after that, the feeling of peace was just indescribable. I'd never experienced it before, because I was on caffeine ever since I can remember, drinking soda and eating chocolate and stuff. But I thought it was normal to wake up in the morning after an 8-hour sleep, feeling all groggy and ass-dragging, But no, that's the caffeine. Once the caffeine was out of my system, I'd go to bed, I'd sleep for 7 or 8 hours, then I'd wake up feeling completely refreshed. And I was awake, not just, like groggy. And so that's the caffeine. So people say, yes, I can drink coffee and still sleep. Yes, but it's not the most restful sleep that you need. And REM sleep, I think they call it. That deep sleep where your body repairs and regenerates and refreshes you. But anyways, if I could leave caffeine behind permanently, I would. Because in all seriousness, folks, it's, I won't name the cola, but it's my addiction to colas that keeps me fat. And I'm not just fat, I'm what they call morbidly obese. And I'm shooting for super morbid obesity, but as long as I can still walk, no, I'm kidding. I'm hoping to lose weight. But I'm 5'8" and 3/4. And, I think the government's copying all my stuff here now because, something just went crazy with my computer. I don't know why. Anyways, what was I getting into, folks? Yeah, the weight thing. Yeah, I don't eat any more than anybody else, any other man. Oh, I'm 5'8" and 3/4, and I weigh about 320, and I'm at the very extreme high end of my weight because once I hit 320, I always go on a weight loss diet. And I don't know, this summer I always start losing weight in the springtime. By the end of the summer, I will have lost 40 or 50 pounds because I ride my tricycle during the summertime. I know that sounds funny. That's why I say tricycles. I've got 2 adult tricycles and 2 bicycles, but I really like the trikes because when I was young, I liked seeing how fast I could go. And now that I'm old, with the tricycle, I like to see how slow I can go. You see, when you're on a tricycle, you can go dead slow or even stop without losing your balance, without losing control of the machine. It's the great thing about a tricycle is you can go. Where I live, it is permitted. It is legal. It is lawful to ride your tricycle on the sidewalk as long as you stop for pedestrians and as long as you give them the right of way. Now, the same can't be said for bicycles. Bicycles, you ain't allowed to ride on the sidewalk. But with a tricycle, you can go very, very slow. I mean, much slower than the average person walks. There's something neat about it. I don't know. But anyways, you can lose control on a tricycle when you're going any speed. So it's a different balance than a bicycle. A different balance. You have to get used to it. And anyways, if you don't want to lose control of the tricycle when you're going more than 5 or 10 miles an hour, then when you make a change in velocity, which is a vector quantity which includes speed and direction. So when somebody asks you velocity by rights, you should tell them both the speed and the direction. Speed is a scalar quantity. Velocity is a vector quantity. Yeah, I'm showing off my knowledge of high school physics 40-something years after I took it. How come I still remember it? I don't know. I just do. Maybe because I don't drink that much. So I still got a lot of my memory bank left. But I don't worry about being fat too much. It's when it gets uncomfortable is when I start losing weight. See, remember General Burkhalter on Hogan's Heroes? He was fat. He was really fat. Now, I'm not talking about Schultz. I'm talking about General Burkhalter, played by Leon Askin. He lived to be 97 years old. He just died a few years ago. 97, he really did. Leon Askin, look it up. So being fat is not necessarily the worst thing, of course. The worst thing about being fat is it's uncomfortable carrying around all this stuff. 3 summers ago, I got down to 260. My all-time highest weight was around 335, and 3 summers ago I got down to 260. Once I got below 280, I could walk for miles and miles and miles because my upper inner thighs was no longer rubbing together. And the more weight, the benefits from dieting are immediate. I have an electronic scale. Practically every day I noticed I would weigh myself first thing in the morning before I'd eat, before I'd drink water. I always drink lots of water. And you felt good losing a half a pound. Anyway, I was losing between 5 and 10 pounds a week because I was riding the tricycle 10, 15 miles a day. And I had my dog at the time and was playing with her. And I tell you, when you got a dog, you get a lot more exercise than anyhow. It's just uncomfortable being this fat. So, and if I can be graphic, why did I pick 320 pounds to start losing, to be my upper limit? It's totally artificial. I mean, I could keep gaining weight until I, croak if I didn't limit but yeah, when I hit 320, I get serious and start losing weight. Why is that? Because if I get any bigger, I can't reach my asshole to wipe it. I don't know how those morbidly obese people wipe their asses. But, I mean, I could never ask another human being to do that. A space alien I could ask. An alligator I could ask, but not a human being. But anyways, yeah. Would I like to get skinny? Absolutely. But I'm realistic, and 95% of people who lose all their overweight, within 5 years, 95% of them gain all that weight back, or even more, 95%. But it can be done. Limiting calories, eating healthy, getting plenty of rest, drinking plenty of water, and exercise. The more weight you do, the more exercise you can do. When the more weight you lose, the more exercise you can do. But yeah, I would like to get down to about 160 pounds, 170, 160 pounds, according to the charts. I'm supposed to weigh about 167. Yeah, I would dearly love to. I haven't been under 200 pounds since I was 30 years old. So, the weight gain started when they started making Coca-Cola with corn syrup instead of cane sugar. Back in like 85, I think it was. I noticed that's where my weight. So if I stop drinking soft drinks and junk food, but still, eat everything else, and not even exercise, I still lose about a pound or 2 a week. So if I couple, and I've been on 2,000 calorie a day diets, low carb diets, no junk food diets, and with exercise, and the weight just melts off of me. It's I really hope I can develop the self-control to cut out all junk food entirely, because it's limiting me. Now, has it limited my love life? I suppose it has. But I guess I'm as close to asexual as you can get without actually being a dud. But I've lived so long alone that, I mean, that it's uncomfortable for me to live with somebody else all the time. It would seem to me obtrusive to have somebody around morning, noon, and night. Being in the bed, when you go to bed, she's there, and when you wake, or he, if that's your bent, and when you wake up in the morning, she or he is there. And the thing is, I choose freedom over love, over romance. You can't have both. You can have romance and love, or you can have freedom. If somebody that looked exactly like Sofia Vergara fell in love with me and wanted to be with me, would I get with her? In a heartbeat. But I would miss my freedom. So, it gets lonely sometimes, but if I can wax serious for just a moment, I've always felt the presence of God when I'm conscious. Ever since I can remember, a little itty bitty kid, I've always felt the presence of the Lord, so I'm really never alone. I go into the woods quite a little bit and camp, and I love getting alone. Most people, let's face it, most people are too scared to go in the woods, especially at night. I'm not. I'm one of those men who experiences fear in a different way than average. I can walk through, and I'll name the park, Pacific Spirit Park in near Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. It used to be called the University Endowment Lands until the mid or late 1980s, when it was made into a park by disgraced British Columbia former Premier Bill Vandersham. No, but anyways, most people would be too scared to walk through there in the middle of the night in complete darkness, but I'm not. Now, how do I experience fear when I walk through the woods? It is a feeling of excitement, of added awareness. It's like being intensely alive and living in the now. Now, there's no bears in that park. Is it possible that a bear could swim 5 miles across the drink from the mountains and get in there? Yeah, it's possible, but I've never seen no bears in there. Well, I carry bear spray with me anyway. But anyways, there are coyotes back there, and coyotes will attack children and small women. So, a lot of men, most men won't admit it, but they're too scared to go back there at night. And to me, it's a very invigorating feeling. Is it fear? I hesitate to call it fear, but I guess it would, where most people would feel fear. I'm just intensely invigorated and excited. And I don't mean sexually. I mean just like an adrenaline rush. But people who do skydiving and BASE, bungee jumping, and people with the parachutes that go out of airplanes and stuff for fun. These are the kind of people who do not experience fear in the normal fashion. It's a male thing. I believe it's a function of testosterone. And we just don't have the brain chemistry for the fear. I'm not bragging. I'm just, describing a fact. But I don't think people are cowardly. for not walking for being too scared to walk through the woods at night. Hell, it's illegal. The woods are closed. Once it gets dark, it's illegal to be in the woods. Of course, they never enforce it unless they catch you. And, of course, a woman was murdered in them woods just 3 years ago. No, wait, pardon me, it was 5 years ago, yesterday, April the 3rd, 2009. A lady by the name of Mrs. Wendy Ladner-Bowdry was murdered back there. And I happened to have been camping in the woods it's a big park. I mean, it's bigger than Central Park in New York City, and it's all woods. It's over 3 square miles. If you've heard of Stanley Park in Vancouver, Pacific Spirit Park is even bigger than Stanley Park. But anyways, I don't know how many other campers are there. I've never actually come across anybody camping, but some old lady that's been going to the park since forever told me one time that got a little bit of a feather in my throat. Told me that she knew of 40 campers back there. I didn't tell her I was camping back there. I sort of just said I would like to interview some. Anyway, she told me there's about 40 people there, but I've never seen some guys. Mind you, it's surrounded by a rich neighborhood, and so when you see scruffy guys walking through there, yeah, it's kind of more than likely they're campers. But anyway, so this lady, Mrs. Bowdry, was murdered back there. And the police eventually ended up rousting everybody that was camping there. I don't know how they caught me. They camping illegally. And my camp had been to some place for 7 years. Now, I didn't live there. I lived elsewhere, but I would sleep several nights a week in the, that's a funny look, in the tent, because I couldn't live in the big city if I couldn't go camping several times a week. I just couldn't take the stress. I'd have to move out to the bush or wilderness or, a small town that's just right up against the wilderness. Up country, they say in British Columbia. But anyways, no, but the police found where I was camping. And so either they did a grid search, look that up, I'm not going to explain that, or more than likely, they, since 9/11, the police, even in Canada, have had access to the high-tech stuff. And I'm sure they found me through my smartphone. That's why when I go camping in the woods, I don't take my phone no more. I don't want them knowing where I am. But anyways, so they asked me if I'd come in to be willing to answer some questions. And I said, about the murder. And I said, normally I would say no, but on the suggestion of my lawyer, but I knew I didn't kill that lady. I never even seen her, as far as I know, before, or I never seen her, period. But I said, in the interest of, I want to help you eliminate me as a suspect. And then he interrupted me and said, person of interest, quote unquote. I said, all right. I'll come in and answer all your questions, but I know I didn't do it. So you got to give me $1,000. So anyways, they talked me down to $20. So I ended up going in July of 2010. I ended up going to the North Shore, North Vancouver detachment of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, but they weren't mounted. And I was interviewed for about 2 hours by a portly, fat, short RCMP guy in his 40s or 50s that you'd never guess was a cop. And a woman about 30-ish that was blonde and skinny and cold as ice. I guess she was the bad cop, quote unquote, in the good cop, bad cop routine. But anyways, I permitted them to bring in audio-visual equipment to record the interview. And for 2 hours, they used all their interrogation techniques. And I guess I gave every indication of veracity and telling the truth, because they, I think they believed me when I told them I didn't kill the lady. I didn't do it. And it's kind of course, I told all my friends and, people that know me, immediately about the going in, and they sort of treated me a little different for a while. It's like, anyways, there were over, as far as I know, they've talked to over 500 different people, but they've never been able to catch who killed Mrs. Beaudry. So either the guy that did it, and it had to be a guy, come on, another woman, if I owned a farm, I'd bet the farm that she was killed by a man and not by a woman. But I guess it's possible the offender was a woman, but it had to have been a guy. Anyways, they never released the details of the crime, but the way these things go, aren't they usually raped before, during, or after the murder? Anyways, they said she died of blunt force trauma. So obviously the guy whooped her upside the head with a log or something, but he's keeping his mouth shut, or he's dead, one of the two. It's probably more he's keeping his mouth shut, but yeah, I've asked the Lord in prayer to reveal to me who did it, but I've never got anything in response to that. So that's one of the things we just gonna have to, leave up to the police. Oh, the interrogation was fascinating, and I asked them later if I could have a copy of I don't think it was a videotape. I think it was straight to computer, and then they made a DVD or something. But I asked for a copy of it, of my interview, but they never would give me one. So I was thinking of suing them, but I signed a whole bunch of papers before. Gee, that eye's getting red. I hope it's not infected. I gotta quit itching it so much. That's something about Southern dialects. Instead of saying scratching and itch, they say itching and itch, which means scratching and itch. Anywho, they wouldn't give me a copy of the thing. I thought of suing them for it, but I probably wouldn't get anywhere. Anyways, but it was an interesting interview. They asked all kinds of trick questions and rapid fire questions, and they asked me in several different ways, did I kill her? And, of course I didn't. So then they asked me to take a lie detector test. Now I said I'd have to talk to a lawyer, and the lawyer recommended against it. So I refused to, because I understood they're not always accurate and they don't hold up in court. But then I thought to myself, I really want to help the police eliminate me as a suspect. But again, so I wrote them, not a letter, but the RCMP have a website, and I wrote them a little thing. I said, I'd be willing to take a lie detector test and ask you any question, answer any question at all about anything you want vis-a-vis Mrs. Beaudry's murder, but I won't answer any other questions, like my private life or stuff like that. But I said, but I know I'm innocent, but so it's a waste of time for me, so you're going to have to give me $1,000. But this time I didn't hear back from them at all, so obviously they know that, oh, here's an interesting thing. In, I think it was August or September of 2012, I had just moved into 8091-163 A Street, Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. And the police showed up about 12:30 in the afternoon. About 6 RCMP, 2 were in uniform, and the rest were plain clothes. But they looked up at me. I was at the top balcony and looking at them, and they said, there he is, and sort of smiled in a funny way. And I thought, they were looking at me, and I said, what the hell? I said, I ain't done nothing wrong. What the hell are they doing? Anyways, they come upstairs and said, can we talk to you? And I said, sure, what's this all about? And other tenants happened to be there, and even the landlord happened to be there. So I said, well, what's this all about? They said, somebody matching your description has engaged in an armed robbery. And I forget whether they said it was in Vancouver or Burnaby. They said they'd like to search my room. But at one point, I said to myself, no, you're not searching my room. Then they said, well, in that case, we'll have to get a warrant. And we might not be as careful going through your stuff if we have to get a warrant as we would be if you gave us your permission. So I thought, okay, I get it. I said, yeah, go ahead. You can search my room. Have at it. So I went in there. I went to go with them, 2 guys, and my room was very tiny there. I guess you could say it was like 10 feet by 7 feet. It was a very tiny room. Anyways, they said, no, we'd like you to stay out here. So they were in there for about 5 or 10 minutes, and God only knows what they did. But later on, I thought to myself, you know what? I think that was bullshit about an armed robbery thing, because I've never armed robbed nobody. I've never robbed nobody, period. Maybe if they were holding a box of KFC or something. No, I'm kidding. But I think it really had to do with this Mrs. Beaudry thing. And they were looking for evidence so that I might have had something to do with it. But of course, I didn't. So they didn't find nothing. So they left. And one of the cops was English. He was from England. He said, you've been very cooperative, and thank you very much. But sometimes one of my friends suggested they put a listening device in there, and I said, I don't care. I had nothing to do with that. Lady being murdered. I said, I never killed nobody in my life. I said, except maybe after I cut a fart or two, somebody might have died later, but I said, I never deliberately killed anybody. And I said, with lacking criminal intent, there can be no crime. But no, I hope they do catch the killer, because as long as he's on the loose, who knows, he might do it again. But some girls have been raped in the University of British Columbia, which is close to the park, recently, like within the last year or two. And I'm wondering if it's the same guy. There's a description of the dude, but I don't want to single out his ethnicity. So I won't, but y'all can Google it if you want to. But yeah, it's a shame, that these guys up and kill women, and they rape them and sexually assault them, because women have to be on their guard, and they don't, when you're a man and you see a good-looking woman and you want to talk to her in public, you want to talk to her, but she's scared because she doesn't know you. And it's sad that you got these killers running around loose. But my solution, I was raised in the United States. My solution is these women should be permitted to carry guns to protect themselves. But of course, this is Canada, and people are brainwashed against firearms. So the net result is people are victimized and killed periodically. If that lady, Mrs. Beaudry, had been carrying a gun, well, she was going jogging, right? So she couldn't have had her pocketbook with her. But they say when you carry pepper spray or a gun, my throat's getting really, I don't know what the problem is. I might have to go see the doctor. It's like a feather's in my throat. I don't know. I'll drink some water. Anyways, I'm finished from talking too much. Anyways, I don't mind talking about the Mrs. Beaudry case. It's the only time I've ever been suspected of killing somebody. Or not suspected, but person of interested, if you can put it into an adjective like that. Damn, I'm getting old. You know, my one fear of losing weight is right now the fat is keeping most of the wrinkles at bay. But once you lose weight, the fat disappears from your face and the skin sort of follows the contours of the skull. I noticed the last time I lost some weight that underneath my second chin was a turkey neck. You know what old people get when they get old, they call it a turkey neck. And remember how Fat Bastard, when he lost all that weight, and he said his neck looked like a vagina. Hopefully that won't happen to me. But anyways, so let's say a prayer that they catch the murderer of Mrs. Beaudry, and let's try to convince the Canadian people that the propaganda against firearms is just that, and because I'll tell you, more people would save their lives if they were permitted to carry guns. In the United States, most of the media is controlled by a certain group of liberals, and you never hear about the thousands and thousands of cases every year in the United States where people have saved their lives and the lives of the innocent by having guns. You never hear about that. You only hear about like when a little kid finds his daddy's gun and blows his head off or somebody else's. But yeah, bottom line, I believe in guns. I believe we have a God-given right to protect ourselves. Now, I don't own any guns, any real guns. I've got a little toy dart gun. But now that the police will probably come and want to search my room again. Anyways, the search of Mrs. Beaudry, when they first questioned me about it, I was scared that they were trying to set somebody up, me up for the murder. I really got paranoid about that, but thankfully it appears that they're really after the truth, and because they, after the interview and after that search, they haven't been bugging me. So apparently they know that I had nothing to do with it. Anyhow, yeah, it's sad about that lady being murdered. Most of the time when a woman is killed like that, it turns out to be the boyfriend or the husband. But they seem to have eliminated the husband who claimed to have been out of the city at the time she was murdered. Well, she was jogging by herself solo. And I don't know, I've never been married. Not to a woman anyway. I've never been married to anybody. I just like putting it that way. But if I had a wife or daughter, I wouldn't let them, I wouldn't let them go anywhere alone. Especially go jogging in the woods. I just wouldn't do it. Yeah. Well, the truth might not be politically correct, but here's the truth. That park is right near an Indian reservation, and those people aren't known to be the most law-abiding of people all the time. So, I don't know who killed that lady, but again, it's right near an Indian reservation. And remember I said in the last year or two, some girls were raped or sexually assaulted at the University of British Columbia. Well, they identified their assailant as a Indian, a native Indian. So I wasn't going to mention that, but I thought, hell, it's the truth. So, but yeah, I kind of think Miss Beaudry was murdered by one of them Indians. To tell you the truth, I'm sorry, but that's what I believe. Anyways, God bless you. Let's pray for that the murderer is caught before he can hurt anybody else. So, God bless you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Oh, here's something I want to talk about next time. The Watchtower Society of Jehovah's Witnesses, they all have sold or are selling all their property in Brooklyn, New York. And as you know, they've been there for well over 100 years. The property's worth billions. So my question is, why are they selling the property? So that's what we'll talk about in the next video. Okay, see y'all later.